Hey, I'm Mark.
And I'm Craig.
And this is Songwriters Tales. And Craig, today we have part 2 of Kyle Lehning. And that's pretty much all we probably have to say for people to listen to this cat.
I'm not going to say any more, Mark. Get on there and press play.
Let's do it.
Pat Higdon sent me that in the mail from MCA.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of the first 4 songs we recorded. Keith Stegall, whom I'm sure you guys have spoken to or know well. Keith actually brought Randy to me. He was recording a live record with him out in the at the Nashville Palace, and I was producing Keith, who was an artist at Epic. And he,
I'd forgotten he was an artist. I've just known him as a producer.
Yeah. We made a pretty cool record for Epic. And he came in one day in the studio before we started working and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And I listened to about 20 seconds. I said, "Who is that?" And he said, Catfish Cook at the Nashville Palace. And I said, "That's the way he sounds." He said, "Yeah, that's live. It's a live recording." And so I went out to see him sing, and that's exactly what he sounded like. So, and he'd been turned down by everybody.
Yeah.
He'd been turned down by everybody in Nashville. He'd been messing around in Nashville for 10 years since he was 16, trying to get somebody to pay attention to him. And everybody said, nah. And,
wow.
So it was awesome.
It's interesting. We were talking about Rex Benson, and Rex is pretty intuitive with songwriting and can really kind of,
to say the least.
Yeah. He's been great for us over the last couple of years.
He really has.
Yeah. I like his enthusiasm.
Yeah, me too.
It's amazing.
It's infectious. It really is.
We've been another thread that we've been seeing is with the songwriters and the artists and the publishers through the podcast is that there's 2 camps that we can see that Mark and we were talking about this before you popped on, Kyle. There's 2 camps. It's almost like the what do we call it, Mark? The title driven songwriting, and then writing from the heart and from the gut. And by God, I don't care what's popular. I'm gonna put which kind of sounds like to me what Randy was doing. He wasn't just going, he was actually saying, man, I got to do it because I believe in it. I feel it. And what are your thoughts on that as far as that? I mean, obviously, without money passing through, the business doesn't continue. But is there, how do you see the line drawn between those 2 camps?
Well, that's a good question. And that's part of the mystery, isn't it? I mean, music is not a easily defined medium, so I mean, there are some really stupid songs that I love.
Me too.
Are just like, man, I love that. I mean, Ray Stevens' Guitar Zan, you kidding?
I know.
That's so fun, and it's a great record. Listen to it just from a record production standpoint. It's like, man, that's like a Phil Spector record or something. I mean, it's awesome. When Jerry Reed did, and Tim Dubois wrote, "She got the gold mine, I got the shaft."
I remember that.
That's brilliant.
It is.
That's a brilliant record. It's not Wind Beneath My Wings, but it's a brilliant idea, and it's every single word leads right to that idea. Incredibly well written. And Rick Hall made another unbelievable recording of that song. I mean, that record, from a record producer standpoint, I have, I've listened to that thing as deeply as I've listened to any Beatle record. Because the production is so spot on, so great. Everything is happening in there. It's just awesome. So, I mean, you know, to me, it's like whatever makes you push the play button, you know, or keeps you from changing the channel on the radio or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, that can be any combination of things. It can be a song that, you know, I have been one of those guys that's pulled off the side of the road when he's heard something on the radio and had to go like, hold it. I need to stop driving. I just need to listen to this. I remember the first time I heard Paul Davis's song, I Go Crazy. That was an pull off the side of the road song for me. That was like 76 or so. And I just, you know, and I had met Paul in Jackson, Mississippi when I started working in a little studio. That's when I met Paul Davis in 72.
Wow.
I knew him. And when I heard that song, it was like, pull over. And I kept thinking, okay, that's on Bang, or it might've been Webb. It might've been Bang. It was on Bang Records.
I think it was Bang.
Yeah. I thought, okay, they're never going to be able to deliver this. So I was producing England Dan and John Ford Coley at the time, and I thought, as soon as this record slides off the chart, we're going to cut that song. I'm going to cut that song. And the record just kept going. It was on the charts for like 11 months.
Oh, I know.
Every week I'd open up Billboard, and it would just like have, you know, like a little something. It just hung in there. And I think it was at least a top 10 record by the time they got done. It was a great piece of music. So, you know, I mean, just whatever flips the, you know, the button that turns the light on. And I've been all over the map with it. I love really deep lyrics and thought out stuff. And, you know, the first two singles I bought as a kid, 45s, were Ring of Fire and Purple People Eater.
Well, that explains a lot.
It does. It does.
You know, it's funny you say that. I remember the very first two singles that I bought. It was Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues and One of These Nights by the Eagles. And So yeah, it's funny how
you were a little more sophisticated than I was.
Not really. I mean, I had an older sister who was very influential in what I listened to because she was a Seeger fan, so I became a Bob Seger fan because she was, and then I started realizing, okay, this guy really is good.
Yeah, sure is.
That's great. You know, so I'm not even going to tell you. I don't think I ever bought any of my records. We won't go there.
Oh, okay.
That was the first record I stole.
Yeah, the original download, right?
You were Napster before Napster was even there, right?
Dude, I'm just glad they finally came out with 45s because they would fit under a jacket. You know. No, my sister was the same. I'm 70 and my sister was 4 years older. And so I had all the Woodstock records from Bee Gees to Jimi Hendrix to Joan Baez to, you know, all that stuff. And then I was getting into the Who and you know, Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and all that kind of stuff. So, but which is what I loved when I read your bio, because, you know, you have these ideas about people. Until you really know them, you just have this preconception about people. And I would have never guessed what your holistic background of music was with the jazz and everything. And we used to go out when Mark and I first started going out to Nashville. Of course, Alan Reynolds was the hottest thing on the planet at the time. This was in the 90s. And James Stroud, you know, we got to know James, and who else was out there? Of course, Ed was out there, but I realized that a lot of the producers and a lot of the people in Nashville were starting. My concept of Nashville was that everybody was going to be wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats, and this is 30 years ago, and you know, so I'm going to be. Here's a little disclosure here. I literally went out and bought a pair of cowboy boots so that I could fit in.
Boy.
And then when I got out there, everybody's freaking wearing Nikes. I'm going, my gosh, what's going on here? And it occurred to me that, you know, what the public sees and what's going on the outside, you know, the listeners, is nothing what's going on the inside. You know, the ones that are the drivers and the movers and the shakers. And it's been it's interesting how that all takes place. But what I was gonna say, now that I'm finally can figure out what I was gonna say, is that the producers and engineers and all the people in Nashville came from more of a rock and roll background, it seems like, you know, or an R&B background, or anywhere but, you know, out. They didn't just come in from the hayfield, you know, and
Right.
sit behind
It wasn't
behind
dirt
the desk.
country.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and which I think obviously made it more, gave it a larger audience, because they were putting something out that was more palatable to more, you know, diverse audience. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the level of musicianship, the studio musicians in Nashville
Oh,
from the very beginning, from the
ridiculous.
40s on, you know, those
Yeah.
guys were so deep and great musicians. They had, you know, they were impeccable taste, great time, and they had enormous restraint, because I mean, the guitar players could have played like Charlie Christian. They could have, you
Yeah.
know, they could have played more notes than you could possibly hear if that's what you wanted. But that's not what they did. They just served the music and they served the songs. And I mean, the original A-Team, Harold Bradley, and, you know, Boots Randolph was a great bebop jazz tenor player. And here comes Yakety sax, you know. And,
Right.
I mean, and he could hold his own in any club with any great jazz tenor player. I mean, that's the depth that you're dealing with. And you're talking about that on every single instrument. Every guy, the bass players, the drummers, everybody, the level of musicianship was astounding. In fact, you know, when I graduated from college in 71 and moved to Nashville the day I graduated, and thought, because I'd majored in music and I'd been playing piano since I was 12, and I was considered myself a pretty good musician, and I had written big band charts in my college jazz band. I mean, I knew what the viola clef was. I felt pretty good about myself, and came down to Nashville thinking, well, you know, maybe I can somehow get a foot up in that studio thing. And then I saw Pig Robbins play a session, who your listeners may not know was the guy that took over from Floyd Kramer when Floyd started to have a solo career in the late early 60s. And Pig was blind. And this minute I heard him play on a session was the minute I said, there's no way they're going to hire me if they can get him. I got to find another way in the door. And it's not going to be plan A. You know? Plan A is now gone.
Scratch out plan A.
Plan A. You know.
Wow.
So I mean that.
You know.
Yeah. It's humbling.
I'm sorry.
No, I said it's. I was just gonna say it's very humbling when you. I've done the same. You know, I mean, I'm a decent guitar player, but then when you go to one session in Nashville and you go, oh man, I would never even get my guitar out of the case in front of these guys.
The second engineer probably plays better.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
Like, and he's not going to say anything. You're going to figure that out. You know, 2 or 3 days later, when he's sitting in the back of the studio with a Diet Coke, and then he starts playing some ridiculous bluegrass stuff, and you're going, wait a minute.
Exactly.
You know, we had an old buddy of mine, Pat Buchanan. I know you got to know Pat.
Oh, I love Pat Buchanan. Man, I love him.
Yeah, Pat. We had Pat on the show, about a month ago?
Oh, yeah. Great. I can't wait to see that. I got it. When's that going to air? Has that been out?
It's out. It's out. Yeah,
okay.
We'll send you the link. I'll send you the link.
And when we sign off, I'm going to sign on to that.
He's
a nut.
Pat is just, but you know, it's interesting because not only is the talent there, you know, I knew Pat way down in Tallahassee. I was in a band called Eli down in Tallahassee, and Pat was a guitar player in this band down there. And we used to go, who the heck, you know, and Eli was doing real well, but we were all flashing glitz, and, you know, we got by on that. But those guys were they were like the musicians you're talking about. They were just laid back, knew when to play, when not to play, and the stuff they played was just absolutely phenomenal that you couldn't even, we couldn't even do. And so Pat, I remember when he moved to Nashville and started working with all these people, and it occurred to me that it wasn't just the talent, it was also the mindset, the personality and the character, because people in your level of the business, Kyle, you don't want to work with jerks. You're not going to work with jerks. There's too many people out there who are humble and willing and understand that, hey man, this is how you make friends and just
keep
make
getting
it all
called
happen.
back. Yeah,
That's
you
it.
just keep getting called back. Yeah.
100%. Yep. And Pat, and Pat's, I mean, he's such an interesting character.
He is.
And it manages to come out in his playing in a really cool way.
You're right.
It's like he doesn't, I mean, he's just so tasty and it's such good stuff. I love any chance I get to work with him. It's great. And there are times when, since COVID, a lot of people are just sending files around and everybody's got a studio and they so I'll be sitting around working on something. I'll go, man, Pat Buchanan. And I'll call him up and say, hey, and I'll just send him the file and maybe tell him a little bit about what I'm thinking, but I don't want to tell him too much.
Yeah.
And then when I see the email that says, it's like Christmas morning, like, okay, let's see what's in this.
That's cool, man.
And it is. And the thing is, I don't know if you guys have experienced this or not. I've been incredibly humbled since COVID with the way files are going. Every one of these people that I've sent files to that send me stuff back are guys that I have worked with in the studio for years.
Yeah.
And when we're in the studio together, I'd be like, nah, that sounds a little this, or that sounds a little that, or how about we do that over again, or let's fix this, or let's do that. That's my, well, they send me stuff back now and I listen to it and I think they never needed me. They never needed me in there. It's like, I listen to it most of the time. It's like, I wouldn't change anything. What's really interesting is there's sometimes I'll pop in the file that they've sent me and I'll hit play and the first thing they'll play, I'll think to myself, oh, gee, I don't know if I would have done that or not. And then by the time I get to the next thing and it's like, oh, I see why they did that. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'd been there, I'd have stopped that.
Right.
Wow. Before it had a chance to develop. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, my whole career has been a sham.
We can edit this. We can edit this.
No, you need to leave that in. Because it's so, but it's also, it's so delightful that there's that much talent. And,
That's
the thing we're talking about too is there's a kind of unspoken culture around session musicians where their egos aren't really involved in the process. It's serving the song. How do they serve the song? And I love watching that. I've watched it for 50 years, that these guys sit there and they've all got elephant ears. They've got huge ears. They can hear every little teeny thing that's going on in the record. And they instantly know how to fit what they do into that puzzle that becomes this record. And it's amazing to watch.
Yeah. You say that and it's so funny. I've seen the same thing. And to take that a step further, I've seen these great players in the studio go, hey, play that bass line you just played again, because I want to try something different. I love what you did. Like they're hearing each other and they're saying, man, I'm going to change what I played because I love what you're playing.
Absolutely.
And I stepped on it too much, so I'm going to back off and I'm going to do something different. So they're, like you said, they're hearing everybody's parts and they're thinking, and it's all to serve the song. There's no, like you said, hey, I could do a nice little chromatic run here that's going to be awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at me. It's not,
right.
It's just
right.
That's just not the thing that drives them, and it's a beautiful thing to be part of.
Yeah.
See, that's the beautiful part about music, and I'm speaking to our audience now, is that those of us that are in the business, we are actually in this business because we love this business. We're not, we're not having to, get up every morning and go, gee, here we go. Okay, I'll go get it,
Yeah.
But we do it because we love it. And the music is the driving force, the song. And I think it takes you right back to the emotional aspect of it and what it does. We all know it does it for us, so we know that what we're producing does it for other people. And it's kind of like a giving, it's kind of like it's very symbiotic in my opinion. Now I'm gonna speak to something. See, this is why Mark and I think you're a brilliant producer, because we were, I mean, besides the obvious thing. But when you look at CEOs, Mark and Kyle, you'll read their bios, and the really successful ones say, "I just hire people that know what they're doing, and I let them do their job. They're not micromanaging. They're not in there messing stuff up, and taking. Hey, let me do that. They hire people that are super qualified and super know what they're doing, and they let them do it. And they back off, and they bring out the best. I've heard, if I could tell you how many times I've heard musicians say that they worked with producers, and the producer, they just said, man, they just knew how to bring it out in everybody. They just encouraged everybody. They created an environment in that studio that made everybody just want to give their all, like a good coach. And the athletes are great. But if the coach is putting you down and squashing you and pissing you off every way that he can, then you got a problem. You got a losing team. But that's I imagine that's a big part of your success. I'm just saying.
It's all about casting, and and that. That's one of the beauties of any, LA, Nashville, all the great recording centers. They're all surrounded by really talented people, and you have a great, cool folks to pick from.
Who is Steve Dorff? Well, you might not know now, but you will, because on episodes 10 through 13, you're going to find out about the man who wrote I Cross My Heart for George Strait. He wrote Through the Years for Kenny Rogers, Every Which Way But Loose. He's written themes and soundtracks for movies with Clint Eastwood. He's written the TV sitcom Growing Pains soundtrack. Check it out, Steve Dorff on Songwriter's Tales with Mark and Craig.